should have been recording.
No, it's intentional that we were not recording. We don't want anyone to feel like we're making fun of him. We're just appreciating what God gave him.
No, listen,
that voice, man.
Listen, like actually, the truth is he's married. We don't want all the single women calling in going, "Can he talk?"
All right, I'm telling you, you got to fit. You forgot my age.
You see, when you get to a certain age, your voice starts to get a little gravel in it. Yeah. You start to have a little bit more James Earl Jones and Samuel L. Jackson and who's the I forget the guy's name, the guy that did all those movie trailers. But anyways, like I don't have any gravel in my voice yet. It's still just that baritone is like, man, 20 years from now, when I hit my 60s, it's like, ooh, I'm gonna have some gravel in my voice.
Yeah, you probably get that from straining your voice from yelling at your teenagers.
The gravel from teenagers. Yeah, we only have 8 and a 5-year-old kids. Right. So, okay, we're just gonna jump right in. And Rod Lambert is the bonus guest. I didn't have on my notes here. I had David Rose, and now we get David Rose and Rod Lambert. Okay, guys. Let me just pull this up here real quick. I don't even have the name of the organization in front of me. That's how
Fresh Start Christian Harvest Ministries.
Well, there you go. That's why it's a collaboration right there. Yeah. So let me just do this the right way. Hold on a second here. Welcome to the McKinney Podcast, another episode, and we are so pleased and privileged to have David Rose and Rod Lambert for Fresh Start Christian Harvest Ministries. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Man, it's such a privilege anytime that I get to come into a conversation and not really know anything more than a 30-second commercial from Lynx with the McKinney Chamber. Like, this conversation, I have no idea where we're going to go, other than background and whatnot. And let me just slowly fade that music out there and just say, hey, how do we get started with the background here? Which one of you guys wants to start? Because we're going to hear from both of you on how you got to this chapter of your life, how you found your way to McKinney, first and foremost, and how you found your way into leadership of the organization that we're here to talk about. So
Rod,
who wants to go first?
Yeah, I guess I'll start.
Okay.
I came from California to Austin in 2011.
Where, California?
Rancho
North
Cucamonga.
Or south?
Rancho Cucamonga.
Rancho Cucamonga,
Such a
Southern
fun
California.
name.
Outside of LA.
Yeah. Yep. Up against the foothills. Beautiful.
Yes.
But
I've been there.
I retired at 68 years of age. I was in the real estate mortgage industry. I had a whole life of heavy drinking up until I was in my mid-50s. I quit drinking in my mid-50s. And my wife and I weren't getting along too well, talking-wise, and I ran across this lady, and I got hooked on crack cocaine at 57 years of age. I lost my real estate office. I lost a rental house. My car got repossessed. My wife filed for divorce. I hit rock bottom. I was out on the streets for about 3 years. I finally one day just said, this is stupid. And I called and I said, can I come home? She says, well, people don't want you to, but I'll let you come home under certain circumstances. So fast forward, I went home. She went to a Bible study every week. Finally, about after a month there, I said, I want to go to Bible study with you. She about had a heart attack. I went there and I was nervous, and I had 25 people come up and put their arm around me. Said, welcome home. We've been praying for you. So my life I'd been such a POS. I was a people pleaser. And pleasing myself. I was president of this, president of that, president of Board of Realtors, ran for city council, everything. And it was all about me. So anyhow, I didn't know that God would forgive me. And through the Bible study, I read about David and about Paul. And at that point, I realized he forgave them. And those guys those are some pretty bad dudes before they were changed. So anyhow, I gave my life to Christ at 61 years of age. I went back into the real estate mortgage business. We retired at 68, came to Austin, Texas. I thought I'd move to God's country, to Austin. I got to Austin. We're in San Francisco.
Then you realized you were still actually in California.
Yeah. Anyhow, but we started going to a church there, an awesome church, still very good friends with the pastor. He got me involved in a thing called Celebrate Recovery. And so I became a ministry leader in Celebrate Recovery. I did 2 years prison ministries at Travis Correctional Center, and I saw it changing people's lives. Well, God had forgave me, and I had made penance to everybody that I could. And my life had been just great since. So I thought, okay, it's payback. So we moved from Austin up here to, actually to Prosper. Looking for a house up here, we're driving around, drove through Prosper in the back of a police car. In God we trust. I told my wife, we're moving to Prosper. It's God's country. We're finally here. So anyhow, started doing Celebrate Recovery in church here. I had some money. We sold some land down there in Austin that we had by the lake. And I said, you know what? I want to open a sober living house, but I want to base it off of Celebrate Recovery. It's going to be faith-based. It's going to be a Christian sober house. Talked to several people. They said, oh, don't say Christian. Don't say, you'll never have anybody. Well, fast forward 6 years later, we got 4 houses. We do Celebrate Recovery. We've had lives change. This gentleman next to me came to me about a year in. He was just coming off of some bad times, and he sat there and he watched me in our house meetings, just stare at me. And I tell my wife, he's checking me out. He doesn't know if I'm real or not. And so anyhow, David came forward. He became an assistant manager, then a house manager. Now he's assistant director full-time with us.
Awesome.
And he is just an awesome man. But God has been so, so good. We just praise him all the time. And we have found, truthfully, all these guys are just hung up on the past and hurting. And if they come to us, we don't push religion. We just talk about what Christ did in our lives. And we've seen lives change. He's had the opportunity. We're all 3 ordained ministers. And he's had the opportunity to baptize somebody recently. And now he's going to be doing a wedding coming up.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, life is good. I'll be 82 this year.
82? Wait a minute.
What? I was trying to do some math earlier as you're talking. I'm like, wow, when was this? Like 6 months ago when you were 70?
I know. It's like, wait a minute.
No,
Bro.
I'll be 82 in August.
You lived a hard, rough life for a lot of years, and you
you're
look like
looking
this
good.
at 82,
And
brother?
You know what's so funny about that? When I was doing Celebrate Recovery, first started doing that, and I'm telling people, I said, well, you know, I always took vitamins. I grew up where my mother made me take vitamins and balanced meals. When I was on crack cocaine, I get up and take my vitamin every morning.
Oh, man.
Anyhow, so God's been good to me. Very good.
Dude,
to me.
Amen.
If you told me you were 65, I'd believe you without even thinking.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
82. Okay, so no, just side note,
Wow.
do you have a exercise conditioning routine that you do, or you just
Are you selling a coaching program? Because there's other 82-year-olds I know that would like to look like you look today.
You know, it's funny. I love to cook, but I really do believe in balanced meals. And I take probably 20 different supplements a day.
Wow.
But
It shows, brother.
Yeah.
It shows.
Yeah.
so
we'll have to have an offline conversation on that.
Oh, yeah. I would,
All right.
But let me tell you real quick. My 80s, I feel afternoons I get tired. My 70s, I didn't get tired at all. But I'll take a nap sometimes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I get
Listen,
up at 5:30. So
Dude, I'm in my 40s, and I'll take a nap sometimes.
It's like, I'll take a nap. I mean, that's how they trained us up in school, right? You used to go to school and, sometime after lunch, they'd make you take a nap. Then by 3rd or 4th grade, they took that away.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just wrong.
Criminal,
That's
man.
just
You
wrong.
get these kids used to taking a 45-minute power nap in the middle of their afternoon.
That's why I said, if you had a choice between math or nap, I'll take nap. Get rid of the
Hands
math.
down, nap
Sorry, we
all
don't
the
need
time.
that.
So,
Okay,
David,
so-
I'd love to hear your side of this, man. You came in a couple of years ago, and catch us up to before you and Rod crossed paths. Lead us into this current chapter. What's that like?
Are you California also?
No, I'm Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit. Okay.
Can you hear this man's voice? He's got Detroit all over his voice.
So yeah, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I grew up in an impoverished environment and era where crack cocaine just swept through the streets by storm. So I was a victim of that, environment. So to fast forward, I started smoking marijuana at the age of 10. It became an everyday occurrence. And then I started actually selling crack cocaine at the age of 11 years old.
Wow.
The drug dealers in the neighborhood was influencing me to do so, to feed myself, to clothe myself, and things of that nature. So that carried on for about 15 years. Dropped out of school, no high school education, just the lifestyle of a drug dealer, right? Lost a few best friends due to gun violence. I just was going through hell, per se. Fast forward, I moved to Chicago because a situation happened in Detroit that kind of pushed me out the city.
You needed some space and some safety?
Yes, I needed some space and some safety.
Okay.
So that landed me in Chicago, but I took my drug dealer mentality out there. And a few years later, I sold a substantial amount of narcotics to an undercover that landed me in prison. Changed my life, partially, because I started reading the Bible. I read the Bible from cover to cover, started learning about God and things of that nature. Didn't know when I was released that life was about to happen, because I never had any work experience, didn't know how to make an honest living, but I did vow to God that I wouldn't sell drugs ever again. Never addressed any of the underlying issues as far as the trauma that I experienced in my childhood years. So I started self-medicating with ecstasy, got hooked on ecstasy. That led to me actually getting hooked on crack cocaine, the exact same substance that I was destroying my community with.
Really?
So God allowed me the opportunity to get a taste of my own medicine. Up until about 6 years ago, I was just tired of being tired. And I was incarcerated, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to either get busy living and living for God, or I'm going to get busy dying. And I had to make a decision to do so. And so once I was released from jail, I went into a rehabilitation program sober, and the director wouldn't even let me in at first, and I begged him to do so because I was desperate. And he was like, okay, I'm gonna give you a shot, don't blow it. And I completed that program. I left out of there. God just kept showing up in my life and showing miracles in my life. I was on probation at the time, and I was able to get my probation transferred to McKinney, Texas, where my brother lives. He said, man, you just need a change of environment, bro. Just come on out to McKinney. You could come to my home, and I opened up my home to you. So I came to McKinney, and that's when life really changed. So I found some information about Fresh Start Christian Harvest Ministries, Christian Sober Living. And I was like, I want to go there because it's like-minded people that's trying to stay sober, maintain their sobriety. At this point, I wasn't sober long. This was the longest I've been sober since I was 10 years old. And I'm a full-grown adult at this point.
That's amazing.
So
redemption, man.
Complete redemption. And so I met Rod. I came to his house. They was fairly new. And I was just watching him. I was observing him to see, okay, he's saying he's Christian, and, I just want to see if he's real, if he's really compassionate. And he was. This man is full of compassion, and he just want to help people, overcome their struggles with addiction. And not just addiction, but in life, period. And so he started inviting me to church with him, invited me to celebrate recovery, and it completely changed my life. Fast forward, I became a group leader. I went through the training process. I went through the step study groups. I really just started digging deep into my recovery. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself, a leader. And so I became an assistant manager, then manager, and then I studied theology, got my ordination, became an ordained minister in 2021. And here we are. Years later, assistant director, and we have 4 sober living homes and looking to open the 5th one.
Love it, man.
That's amazing. So for both of you, did someone just one day say, hey, try this? How did that even, well, you said that you were into the alcohol, and then you met someone.
And then I got into crack cocaine.
Is that, did someone just, and at 10 years old, but you said that was just the environment that you lived in. And so that was commonplace for you. And it wasn't really, did you think twice before you took that first hit, or?
Did not think twice, because every single family member smoked marijuana. Every single family member struggled with alcoholism. All my friends, their parents was either alcoholics or drug addicts. So it was normal. It was a normalcy for me. So when I first smoked it, I fell in love with it. It was an everyday occurrence in my household. So it wasn't like frowned upon, because everybody that was above me and older than me and the influences that I was up under either smoked marijuana or drank alcohol.
Man, so it was just a rite of passage, regular thing. Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then I grew up in an era in the 50s and 60s, everybody drank. I mean, my parents, all the neighbors, my grandparents, everybody drank. And so I drank. Went in the Navy. I drank. I hated drugs. My son actually was in high school when he got on drugs, and I got so mad at him. And then Dad goes out later on, because if I do something, I do it. I was the best drinker.
You're all in, huh?
Yeah, I was the best drinker. And when I got on crack, I was perfectionist. I had to have everything just perfect. And, and I tried it a couple of times. I thought, yeah, this is nothing. It's kind of cool. But pretty soon, bam, right back of the head just took me down. Because once you started, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
But never incarcerated, though.
For drinking, yeah, but not for the drugs.
Yeah.
I spent 2 weeks in jail is all I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this hits really close to home because, I just met both of you guys. You don't know any of my story. I came into the recovery world from a different direction. That's a different story for a different day. But I came in as a participant back in 2012, and then immediately after getting done with Regeneration, which is a offshoot of CR, it was originally founded as a CR group at Watermark Church down in Dallas, and then became Regeneration, back, close to 20 years ago now. But been in leadership of Regen for close to 11 years when I stepped away. Just life went in a different direction, and that chapter closed, and, not actively involved with Regen anymore. But to hear you guys talk about a faith-based recovery program and to hear the stories, I'm immediately pulled back into being in those circles and hearing those struggles, and then hearing the stories of grit and determination and resilience and submission and just begging and pleading with yourself and with the God that you believe in, to be different, to be changed, to make better decisions, to reform the makeup of who you are as a person, to reform your thoughts, and which then becomes your beliefs, which influences your words and influences your actions and influences your decisions, and just the way that train runs down the tracks. Man, I love it. I'm so here for it. And, the overlap in our stories, obviously I have a very different story. I'm not from, Rancho Cucamonga or Detroit. I made different bad decisions. Let's put it that way. As we all hear about in recovery, it's like, nobody doesn't make bad decisions. Right. You just make different bad decisions than someone else made.
That's right.
You may have a different set of consequences that someone else had. But recognizing through those 11 years of serving in Regen, and recognizing that every single person has made horrifically bad decisions in their life. It's just a question of when and where and how those decisions were made and what the consequences were of those decisions. To the point now that, after so many years of serving, it's like, there's literally nothing that surprises me. There's not a single story that someone can share. I used to get a little bit surprised. I used to hide it well, but it was like, whoa, that's crazy, man. Like, how in the world? All those exclamation kind of comments that people make. After 11 years, I can look someone right in the eyes. I won't even blink. And just like, okay, what happened next? Okay, what happened next? And so on and so forth. It's like, it is what it is, man. You were at a point where you thought that was a good choice. Or you were just at a point where you didn't care. You knew it was a bad choice, but you didn't think you had a better choice, so you chose what you knew was a bad choice, even though you knew it was bad, but you didn't see an alternative at that time. And I see the heads nodding. It's like, there's really only two things. You either thought it was a good choice at the time, or you knew it wasn't, but you did it anyway because you didn't see a better path forward. And I think, for the audience out there, and this episode is definitely going to have a disclaimer, because we always talk about it being a family-friendly podcast. There's moms that listen to this podcast in the car with their kids, and that's fine with me, but we're going to throw a little disclaimer on the front of the episode. And as you guys were talking, you'll notice I stopped the music as you were talking, because I'm like, this is a heavy story, and this is happy music. This music does not need to be playing when he's telling this part of the story. It was like, hey, we're going to throw a little disclaimer on the front of this episode. It says, hey, moms, just FYI, there's some pretty heavy subjects being talked about in this episode, some really big stuff that you may not want your 6-year-old to hear about. So just be mindful of that, before you keep the episode playing the whole time, or you're going to have some questions later for little Jenny going, Mommy, what's crack cocaine?
Yeah.
So, that's really it. I love this episode because obviously mostly, adults are what listen to us. We don't have a bunch of 12-year-olds listen to this podcast. That's the Fortnite podcast that someone else is putting on. But that's kind of the whole gist I wanted to just put out there is like, man, I just love hearing that. And for people to hear it from the co-host of the show, there's no surprises here. It's just a different flavor of bad decision because we've all made them.
That's right.
There's absolutely no judgment.
None. And God is so good because, like myself, I'm 20 years clean. And at the point when I went off on that and everything, my kids weren't talking to me. My best friends, people I borrowed money for to use drugs, I'd lost a lot of friends. I made restitution to everybody. But today, it's every day is just a blessing because I wake up. I have 5 children. I have 15 grandchildren. I now have 15 great grandchildren.
Wow.
And they all call me, Grandpa or Dad or whatever. And wherever we're together, they always say, Grandpa's going to pray. Grandpa's going to pray for dinner or whatever. That is worth more than money can buy.
Amen.
Having my family back.
That's fantastic.
So, and the other thing real quick is on our sober house when we decided to do it because of being in Austin, these guys were coming in to celebrate recovery at sober living houses and the horror stories of they take a shower and somebody steal their wallet. So our house has lockers. I don't do them in all the houses. Nobody uses them now but the first house. But we only put 2 men to a bedroom. You can ask David, we spend a lot of money furnishing every house just like a regular house. We make the bedrooms, there's 2 to a room, but it's like a home. It's better than being in a college dorm or being in a military base. Our houses are clean and nice, and the atmosphere just vibrates from house to house exactly the same. God just works miracles, and we don't push anything on anybody. We show them where the water is, they can drink it.
We love it.
And they are homes. Excuse me. We're careful of the environments where we put the houses at. We make sure that they're not in sketchy neighborhoods where they see homelessness just roaming the streets, or we assure that they are safe.
Yeah.
And when they come outside, it's very peaceful. All our homes are very peaceful.
Let me just ask some logistic questions here because I put in. You guys didn't know this, but we actually work a lot with a few different sober living groups. We got a group that's actually based in Washington State where they have 120 houses across 17 states. And I'd love to connect you guys with them if you wanted to ever talk shop and whatnot. But one of the most common things that we see as being a challenge for folks that are wanting to put a sober living house in a good neighborhood is dealing with the potential negative interaction with the people that are in that neighborhood that may not want those people in their neighborhood. How have you guys gotten in front of community engagement, getting the messaging out, giving the people that live in the immediate vicinity of that house comfort that you're not bringing in, recovering criminals that are going to be a danger to their kids or whatever it might be? How do you guys address that with the people that you're around?
That's a tricky subject because do you walk in when you rent the place or buy the place or lease the place? Do you tell them what you're doing? And we thought about it. No, we don't. We wait there until we're about 6 months in, and then we start talking to the neighbors. And the first house, actually, the guy across the street thought we were drug dealers. And he got mad. The police came out to talk to us. The city talked to us. We're legal. We can be anywhere because of the American Disabilities Act.
Yep.
Anyhow, so when we talked to this man, we told him who we were, what we did, and all that. All of a sudden, nicest guy. The neighbors bring us cookies and candy. We had a lady at this other house. She thought somebody had disrespected her from a car. I don't think it was one of our guys, but we went down and talked to her. Come to find out, she's a court reporter that works at home. My wife is a retired court reporter, so we hit it off. The lady loves us, and because we are the safest house in every neighborhood.
Yeah,
we're the most sober house in every neighborhood because we're zero tolerance. We're probably the toughest house for somebody to come to recover. We tell them, if you're not serious, don't come to us because you breathalyze every night. You're urine tested once a week.
Really?
If you're dirty, you're out immediately. But we're not going to poison the whole house. But we have a waiting list of people to come in. We've got 3 or 4 guys have been with us over 3 years.
Okay.
Our average stay is about 9 months per guy.
So you typically will lease or own. Like, how do you guys structure the organization? Are you guys owners and operators, or are you mostly just operators?
Well, we own one house and then we lease the other 3 right now.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting into the weeds here.
Yeah,
I have
that's
a
okay.
lot of
No, that's
experience
good.
with
Yeah.
the people that, because the folks that I work with are predominantly the owners of the properties.
Right.
They've partnered with an organization that is a professional, full-time, sober living house manager company.
Right.
Like the folks that we work with don't manage the property. They own the property and structure the property management, maintenance and repairs and whatnot. They outsource the entire management of the house. Like the guy who lives in the house, who's basically the caretaker or the one who's holding the residents responsible and whatnot. So I was really just curious, like how the structure of it is, if you guys own and operate, because those are two very different things. Yeah. Owning and operating, two different challenges.
That's right.
And
we also we also have house leaders. So we have.
So they are supervised.
They are supervised.
Okay.
Yeah. We appease all the neighbors. Like we don't allow smoking in the front yard or where it's visible. We don't allow people just to hang out in front of the house. We're sure that the vehicles are not parked in front of their mailboxes. Things of that nature. So they respect that.
Yeah.
And then every guy has to work at least a minimum of 30 hours.
That was
per
my
week.
next question. Is that obviously you have things on the intake that you got to be clean, all those other things, but they have to be gainfully employed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll help them find a job, but they have to work 30 hours minimum a week.
So talk to me about the other organizations that you guys are partnered with for rehabilitation, for employment placement, for charitable or nonprofit work. Like McKinney's nonprofit sector, man, golly, it is so strong. The organizations, and so many of them work really well together. If the purpose, if the mission, if the activities of the organizations, dovetail nicely, I got to know you guys are partnered up with other organizations that have similar missions and values and whatnot. Talk about that for a little bit.
Well, we're with LifePath. We've been with LifePath.
Of course you are. I was there. Okay. There we go.
In fact, the lady that's in charge of it, when we first opened, I'll never forget, she brought the guy to the house in her car, one of the first guys that had to my house. She took him to get his car, which was in storage, came back and gave him $20 out of her own pocket. And we talked about God a little bit. And I thought, wow, this is a government agency, and these are real people. They're not government, just, robots.
Yep.
So we've been with them for 6 years. Grace to Change is another, an IOP.
Yep.
And Shannon is the one that helped me, not financially anything, but told me if I get a house in McKinney, she would give me my first 4 or 5 people, which we did.
We're actually having Grace to Change in here in July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's an awesome. I just love them. And other than that, we're fairly new. We started off as Fresh Start Christian Sober Living. Then after we became ordained, we became a nonprofit of Fresh Start Christian Harvest Ministries. The problem we totally have when you say about nonprofits is we don't know how to find donors for things. We have Catholic charities. We've had Hope Fellowship help us a little bit. My wife and I sometimes help. But we have to turn away sometimes people that have nothing because we do have bills.
Yeah.
We have a lot of bills.
And sometimes, it's we assist financially because a lot of these guys come to us with nothing, just to clothes on their backs. And when I said that he's full of compassion, he's definitely full of compassion. And sometimes it's to our own detriment financially.
Yeah.
Because we, constantly
because you care.
Yes.
Yes, you care that level.
One of the things that we might be able to assist with is just introductions to other nonprofits. Scott Elliott, former city councilman here in McKinney, he is the executive director of an organization called One Heart McKinney that was founded during COVID. It was a whole bunch of people from leaders in the community came together and formed the organization. And they have a grant program. They have other things that they do to help their fellow organizations. You guys would probably know Community Lifeline Center and what they do as far as being a participant in durable goods and consumer products and making sure that people that are disadvantaged, that are not able to take care of themselves in the way that they need to be able to, and like we've had Allison Monroe is involved in Community Lifeline Center. She's a former executive director of Volunteer McKinney. We can talk offline. There's a lot of introductions that I want to make to you guys, just so you can, hey, here's so-and-so, and here's their name and email, and I'll make an introduction and whatnot, and make sure that you guys know who the other players are locally that are actively looking to meet and mingle with the other nonprofit leaders in the community. Because, what you guys are doing, it's small scale, but I think of the starfish, right?
Yeah.
The story of the boy on the beach with his grandfather, and there's 1,000 starfish washed up on the beach, and the grandfather is just casually picking up one starfish at a time and tossing it back into the water. And, the boy's like, well, Grandpa, there's 1,000 starfish here. Well, why does it matter if you toss one back? And the grandfather puts his hand on the boy's shoulder and says, it matters to this one.
Wow.
And he tosses it back in the water.
That's good.
Have you not heard that one?
No.
Oh man, it's such a.
That's right.
I'm sorry,
Wow.
I just assumed that was just a really common story. Like, just thinking about it is like, well, yeah, you guys only have 4 or 5 homes. What difference can you make? I imagine some days you're like, does it even matter? All the work that we're doing is like, think about the starfish, man. When the grandfather holds up that one starfish, it matters to this one. It doesn't matter how many other people out there. For this guy, for his story, for his life, this work matters, and just chuck it back into the ocean.
It's so true. I know the first 3 years, almost into the 4th year, there would be times that I'd just say, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm retired. It's not worth it. Somebody'd go out, and we had 1 year we had 2 guys in a year, both pastors' kids, overdose.
Wow.
Just heartbreaking. And we'd lose guys, and I would actually go to bed and almost, just cry and argue with God, why am I doing this? But then somebody comes along, and that lost soul makes it.
Yeah.
And so I've had too many times, and when I get upset, the same thing with Celebrate Recovery. I was going to quit leadership and quit being a ministry leader probably 10 times. Every time I do that, God slapped me behind the head, either put a song on the radio or somebody come up to me and say, thank you for what you said to me, or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing it. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So,
how do you guys get word out? What are you doing as far as community engagement? Do you have an event, a fundraiser? Is there anything that you're doing
we're not
to engage with the community?
I wish we were. Everything we've done is just to find people, to find the source for us. In other words, the courts bring it to us, the drug court, the life path, and now we're looking for
Daryl and Jill Barnes need to have a conversation with these guys just to set some things in motion and make other introductions.
That's right.
Daryl and Jill Barnes run Gather, which is
well, they know Daryl. They come to chamber meetings.
You guys have been in his place before.
Right.
Gather's vision is a thing that they started less than a year ago, but Daryl and Jill are super plugged in to the nonprofit community in McKinney. Like, next time you guys get a chance, I totally forgot to go to links, man. My bad. I'm sorry. Next time you're in the building, get Daryl. Was like, hey, we recorded an episode of McKinney Podcast. James and Fred said we definitely need to, get with you and, buy you a cup of coffee and pick your brain on stuff. And let him, once he hears what you guys are doing, if I know Daryl, his wheels are going to start turning instantly, and he's going to figure out who to introduce you guys to, who to make connections for, to figure out how to help you gentlemen be more effective in your mission.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you both had, substance abuse, growing up and through your adult life. Now, both completely different stories, but, there was still a substance there. And for you as a youth, you were already, so it's the hard alcohol. How much were you into? Was it hard liquor, or was it just endless cases of beer? What was your thing?
I probably consumed over a quart of vodka a day for 30 years.
Wow.
I went to college drinking. I was a respiratory therapist at a big hospital. I taught clinical respiratory therapy all the time, going out every day, drinking at lunch, drinking at night. I went to medical sales, drinking.
Man.
Yeah, that's a great place to be if you're trying to not be a drunk.
Yeah.
Medical device
Oh, my
sales.
goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And
then
then-
everybody went out back then. You took everybody to lunch and you drank.
Yeah. 2 cocktails at lunch.
And so, David, you said you dropped out of school.
Yes, I did.
What grade was that?
That was the 8th grade.
8th grade, not even high school.
Not even high school.
How much money would you say you were earning in a year when you were selling it?
When I was selling it, it was progressive. for starters, I was selling for someone else.
Sure.
And then I started selling for myself. So as the years progressed, I would say the most I probably would made was about $100,000
In 8th grade.
in a year. Yep.
In 8th grade.
In 8th grade.
That's insane. And, I don't want to, put on rose-colored sunglasses just because we live in a very affluent region of Texas and of the United States. There's still probably situations like what you were living here in McKinney.
Bro, there's no probably about it.
There's no probably. It's a guarantee.
You can talk to Jason Hernandez and any number of other people that's part of their story on, it may not happen all the time on the western half of town, but those well-off rich folks have exactly the same story. It just might look a little different. Oh. So instead of crack cocaine, it might be fentanyl or something else where they're buying it from some back door of a pharmacy somewhere. It's not necessarily, let's hide in a dark alley and let me hand you $300. It looks different in some parts of town, but especially in those, gentrified, poor areas, it's every bit as prevalent as it was 30, 40 years ago, if not more so, because there's greater access to it because of the internet, because of social media, because of these apps and platforms. You can connect much more freely than you could back in the day.
But tell us about that. So you're an 8th grader. You've seen this. You've been surrounded by it. You are making a substantial income, a lot of coin, a lot of pocket change, and at the so part of that is exciting and hopeful. At the same time, I feel like the other part of your life was like completely hopeless.
Completely hopeless. So the hopelessness of it is you always on the lookout. You always have to watch over your shoulder. As far as the dealer is concerned, you always got to watch out for the police. You got to look out for people that's trying to rob you, or you got to think there's a jealous people around you that want what you have or want your position, or as far as like the money is concerned, you have the consumer, right? It's an extremely addictive substance, crack cocaine. They're going to spend every dollar. They're going to take Christmas gifts from under the tree and sell it. And so you got to watch out for them as well. That's, when they don't have it, they'll rob you. It's a very dangerous system, per se.
Yeah. So now, are you familiar with Jason Hernandez and La Tiendita and what he does?
Yeah, I met him.
Okay. Yeah. So I got to talk with him, and and he gave me the breakdown of selling for someone else and then seeing the profitability. Because he was getting product, selling it, and then delivering the cash and getting his small cut. And eventually the entrepreneur that we all are at some point saying, I could do this for myself.
That's right.
And so, he did. So that burned a bridge, created an enemy. But then part of his downfall was not only selling to an undercover agent, but some of his friends
narked on him,
rolled over on him.
Yeah.
And, they were all, complicit or part of the package for, getting them a lighter sentence and putting him further under the bus. And so, moving to Chicago as you did, is there a distance far enough that you can go to where people are no longer mad that you have stolen their business or those other things? Or so when you go to Chicago, you're just starting amongst a new group of people who don't really know, but still aware that somewhere back in Detroit, someone is looking at Chicago going, you're just a couple miles down the road.
Yeah, you just a hop, skip, and a jump away. The exact same thing happened to me when I moved to Chicago. I was narked out by my own dad.
Really?
Yeah, he was still he was an addict himself, and he was still dibbling dabbling in the addiction. And I had allowed him to move to Chicago with me, and so my ex-wife's best friend introduced me to undercover task force agent. So he's the one that I sold a key and a half of cocaine to. And my dad, they locked me up, my ex-wife, her best friend, and my dad. So my dad turned state's evidence against me. My ex-wife's best friend turned state's evidence against me. So I was facing 18 years at 25 years old. 18 years in the penitentiary. My very first time ever getting caught.
That's massive. And so,
And that's an entirely separate conversation.
holy smokes, we can talk about, just what goes through your mind. And
now, was this back? I don't know when this was. Was this?
This was the early 2000s.
Early 2000s. So they were still dealing with mandatory minimums back then.
Yep.
Jeez, that's.
But due to a technicality in the police report, an initial police report, was the only reason why my attorney was able to see that and got me 4 years in the penitentiary.
Instead of 18.
Instead of 18.
Now, was that your first time incarcerated?
Very first time incarcerated.
So you went
straight to the clink.
You go
straight to the clink.
Go big or go home.
Yeah,
right?
go big or go home. 6 months in the county, from the county straight to prison.
Okay, so when you got pinched up, did you start thinking, man, I got to turn on someone else to lighten my load here? Or?
Oh no, I knew that was against the street code. I'm never.
Man.
I'm never. When I was initially arrested, they asked me. They said, "Hey, give us your connect." I said, "Well, you see my mugshot from Detroit, right? I'm from Detroit. I bet you that's past your jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Oh, you a smart aleck. We're gonna lock you under the jail.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you got to do, sir, because I want to live at least."
Well, and that's the thing, man. If you flip on somebody, you don't end up in prison longer. You end up dead.
Well, what's funny is that Jason Hernandez says that when he finally got pinched up and all of his boys who turned on him, initially his thought was, I'm going to get in there and I have to establish some rules. And the first thing, he's like, I'm going to kill every single one of them. Don't let me be in lockup with any of these guys. But the Lord got a hold of him, and all of a sudden he started viewing everybody with the mercy and compassion that the Lord did, looking at, David, who, fooled around and had her husband killed, or, Paul, who murdered, just outright murdered everybody. He started looking that way. Yeah. And it was amazing to see Jason say, his prayer was, Lord, please don't let me, ever be around these people.
Wow.
Cause he's like, cause he knew that if he was in the same gen pop with the people that turned on him, he was going to have to do something, and do something very drastic. It's like,
Fred knows all the lingo. What he meant to say, ladies and gentlemen, was the general population of the prison, as in not in solitary or some special wing, but just in regular old jail. That's
right.
Where, you want to talk about looking over your shoulder. So, it's the whole thing is wild. To hear you tell the stories, I'm imagining the anxiety.
Yeah.
Of every day, of carrying a gun around in your waistband, going, am I going to have to kill someone today to defend myself? Someone who's going to try to take this wad of cash that I have in my pocket because they want drugs, or they know I got a wad of cash in my pocket. Just walking around all day, every day with the thought of, am I going to have to shoot someone today to stay alive?
So to your point, I was 15 years old, and someone that I fronted a substantial amount of drugs to sell for me and bring me the money back was extremely jealous of me. And the very next day when he brought the money back to me, I was counting it, and he called my name, and I'm like, hold on, I'm still counting the money. He called my name a second time, and I looked up, and I saw a barrel pointed to my head. He squirrels the trigger, bow. I knew there was a God at that moment because he missed. I take off running. I got not far before he hit me. So I got shot in the kneecap. The bullet shattered my knee bone at 15 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Bullets whizzing past my ears. He's still shooting at me. He only hit me one time. It took me 2 years to rehabilitate my leg. I had to learn how to walk again on my left leg.
Wow.
But that wasn't enough to keep you from.
It wasn't enough.
Man.
That's the world, man.
Yeah.
That's the world you tried to escape
crazy.
from. And just to bring it full circle as we wrap this thing up, because I imagine we could tell another hour of stories.
Easily.
2 or 3 hours of stories. I think the audience gets the point that you gentlemen are doing good work, helping bring men out of horrible situations, helping them make the next good decision, and helping them, redeem and return their lives. And obviously the faith-based element is there, but like everything else in that world, you got to feed their belly first before they can hear, because hungry people can't hear well. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much that goes into it where you're not just going to start with, hey man, Jesus loves you and has a plan for your life. That ain't going to work.
That's all right.
Good luck.
All right.
So all that to say, just to bring it full circle, the work you guys are doing is incredibly important. And anybody who is listening to this episode thinking, well, how can I get involved? Well, first off, just give these guys a call, sit down to a cup of coffee, lunch, dinner, whatever, hear what's going on. Maybe you know someone who can help. Maybe you want to get involved financially. Maybe you want to introduce them to someone who has, charitable events or whatever, who can make the next connection to help this organization be more effective. Because for Fred and I's perspective, Fred and I don't have that story, but we have a whole lot of compassion for the people that are in that situation and a whole lot of respect and admiration for the guys that are sitting here across from us who are doing good, very difficult work, but incredibly important work, even at the age of 82. And you could be off enjoying your retirement somewhere, but you chose to do something different.
Yeah, I can't sit. The other thing is I don't think there's a family out there that hasn't been affected by having a member with drugs and alcohol.
No.
The good thing is between him and myself, he can spot them starting to isolate. We can spot just a tendency change. And he's talked them down. I've talked them down. And sometimes we have to put them out. But we're not going to poison the house.
That's tough love right there, though.
Yeah.
So the call to action, folks, is if this story, really touches your heart in some way, if you hear these guys talking, you have ideas on how you might be able to help or make an introduction to someone who can help. Man, that's why this podcast exists.
That's right.
It's celebrating what makes us unique by nature. This is not a fun story to tell. This is not funny, ha-ha. There's no jokes being told here. We're skipping the bear and shark thing because, that's just not the energy of this episode. No. But there are these things happening in our city, in your neighborhood. Someone is struggling with drug abuse and alcohol abuse, probably several people. There's 410 people in my neighborhood. I guarantee you, at least a couple dozen of them is actively struggling with substance abuse right now in a destructive way. Families are being torn apart in my neighborhood because of drug and alcohol abuse. Right now, I guarantee it. Statistically, out of 410 homes, I know there's probably 20, 30, 40 of them that are struggling in some way with substance abuse.
Yeah, or it's just, alcohol is a casual thing, or even, recreational marijuana use because, that happens, and so, know what the signs are, or, are you guys involved in any sort of intervention, prevention, outreach type thing?
No interventions. It's just a matter of when they come to us, we start from the ground up. We start with, okay, you sober for today. Mm-hmm. You did great. We're going to celebrate that. Yeah. And it's so forth and so on. And then we implement the random drug test. Then we implement house meetings, where they're hearing about other people's testimony that overcame drug abuse and alcohol addiction. Mm-hmm.
So just so I'm clear, they don't have to be clean for a certain number of days before they come to you guys.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Okay, what's that number?
What's the number?
How long do they have to be clean before they come to you guys? Can they make the decision? I am
today is day one.
Today is day. How does that work for you guys to be considering someone?
30 days sober. Okay, so we're like an aftercare program.
Gotcha. You're not doing like formal intervention level detox programs.
No,
like
we're not equipped to do detox because it's very, you have to.
That's what I was thinking, man. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
I was,
we don't. Yeah.
Okay, you guys aren't level one. You're step two after someone has completed step one.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, more of like a step down.
A step down.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you a program with a set graduation date, or is it when they feel they're ready to?
So we don't set a graduation date because we fully aware that we didn't make a mess, or these guys didn't make a mess of their lives overnight. Mm-hmm. So we don't have an extended time frame. Mm-hmm. Some people take longer than others, just depending on the depth of their addiction.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then we run our program. It's about 26 weeks, almost 6 months.
Okay.
And it's cyclic, and we do stuff in between. And so we do have certificates that we're going to be giving out now because we've refined it to that point. But it's sometimes it's just where we're at. We had some guys with very low self-esteem. We did 2 weeks on self-esteem, getting but there's no time. We're like you say, we're after treatment. Sober house livings are after treatment. We do not treat them.
So your
life path does.
So your success
We're
I wouldn't say
probably
call it a
about
success
we're a-
rate.
Yeah,
That's not an accurate. You can't say that. No, success rate.
well, we do. We have a recovery, long-term
Recidivism,
recovery rate.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
A lack of,
A lack of relapse.
re-entry
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
relapse.
and we've got a pretty high compared to most sober houses. Truly,
Awesome.
it's God. It's that relationship. We tell everybody there that it changed his life. It changed my life. I've seen it in Celebrate Recovery. I've had guys who Celebrate Recovery that were totally messes, and after they get through step studies, totally new people.
What's the best way to engage with organization? Is it website? Is it how do you want people to find you guys?
You can do one of two ways.
He's got the card right there.
So on the back of my card here is our website. You
Okay.
go www.freshstartcsl
Yep.
or
Christian Sober
I'm
Living.
sorry,
Yeah.
freshstartcsl.com.
Yep.
Okay.
Fresh Start Sober Living.
And it's Christian Harvest Ministries.
Yeah, Fresh
Okay.
Start Christian Harvest
There you go.
Ministries.
And that's really just the perfect way to end the episode, because I think, the next step is just reach out to these guys. They're easy to find in networking circles here in McKinney. If you want to go to a website, it's Fresh Start CSL, Christian Sober Living. That's what the CSL stands for. And the new name, the rebranded name of the organization is Fresh Start Christian Harvest Ministries.
Yeah, and when you go on that site, you see it rolls you into the ministry
Yep.
part.
He is Rod Lambert. He is David Rose. And this has been another episode of the McKinney Podcast, celebrating what makes us unique or redeemed by nature.
That's right.
Talk to you guys next time. Y'all take care.